We've had, we've
Sorry, I
had,
thought we started already, but
it's okay.
okay.
I'll just put okay. And really, it's just been so lovely for the support and the lovely conversations we've had with everybody. It's been very thought-provoking. So just to tell you right at the beginning that my logotherapy journey began in 2012 after being, I actually think I am in the wrong slide here. Let's just see. Let me just go back. Yes, I am. Sorry, I was going through it myself. So there we are at the beginning. Apologies for that. It began in 2012 after being introduced to it by a friend, and then she gave me the book Man's Search for Meaning to read. And honestly, I was hooked at once. It made such sense and was such a source of comfort during many difficult times that lay ahead. So I started with the introductory workshop in Johannesburg, and it was led by Turia Chantal, and she was really an amazing guide and lecturer, and it was so lovely to have her with me. So the very first slide is just telling you that we're looking at the hidden power of the healthy spirit, how this can help parents and children heal and grow as human beings. So I have to say right at the beginning that when I was first introduced to the notion of a spiritual dimension in logotherapy, I was at once intrigued, confused, but there was a strong sort of yes that came from the inner parts of myself. And I've long been searching for that elusive thread of connection that one often is glimpses in therapy. And I always think that's the thing that actually makes the difference and helps with the healing. There was like an aha moment, and yet I felt still I was standing on the edge of something really important, but still something I didn't really understand what to do with. So it started a journey of reflection, of thought, of intentional discovery of the inner healthy spirit, as explained by Frankl, and how to reach this place in my work with children and families. So this has taken many years, and in some ways, I still feel I'm scratching the surface, but I do hope some progress has been made. So I think, let me just go here to get it over. There we go. My personal motivation and why this exploration matters to me. To give you some context, I've worked with children for all of my life, first as a teacher, then a special needs teacher, and finally as a psychologist. And it's really given me great joy. And I'm working with children at the moment all around the world who do not have access to mental health support within their communities. So sometimes it might be language. They might be in a foreign country and not be able to speak the language, or there might be some constraints within rural communities or smaller towns. So I do quite a lot of work in Africa, different countries. So I work online, and I've had to really change my practice and think hard about how to make this work. But Viktor Frankl's philosophies, because they've resonated at such a deep level, has really helped me to engage in different ways with my little clients. And what was interesting for me was when speaking with my colleagues, I realized how little they knew of Frankl's amazing work and the applications of logotherapy in our everyday work. And I really wanted to spread the word. So then I thought maybe I could have an opportunity to incorporate the philosophies and principles from logotherapy into a program that mental health practitioners can use in their work with parents. So it's kind of helped me to find a meaningful expression of my own life's experiences and attempt in a way to pay it forward to help others. So I thought really I would give you an example right from the beginning to show you how I sort of see the noetic dimension at work through a logotherapy lens, looking beyond the diagnosis and really trying to connect at a deep level with this little boy. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the history, but just giving you a broad background. It's a 10-year-old boy diagnosed with high-functioning autism. very oppositional, disconnected, difficulty with social interactions, very angry within the family. Lives in a small rural town with little local support. And his parents are at their wits' end. They phoned me. They said, we really don't know what to do. This child's his behavior's shocking. We don't know. And it's becoming more and more oppositional and confrontational. And he's just stonewalling us. So they have tried a few other psychologists, and he just refused to work with them. Was very disengaged. So you can imagine it was quite quite a thing to start with. So I said, okay, let's give it a try. So this little boy comes online and he's sort of lying on his desk and no eye contact, very disengaged, very angry. So I said, hi, it's Carol, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you and working with you. And how are you? And he just ignored me. So I said, well, um, how things going? And he said, 6, 7. And I was like, oh my word, what on earth do I do with this now? This is going to be a very long session. So I sort of thought, well, in my past, if I wasn't going with logotherapy, I traditionally would have tried to connect with him in another way, distract him, find something interesting to do, not comment too much on what he was saying and doing. But with logotherapy, I thought about Viktor Frankl, and I thought he asks us to be curious. He asks us to try to connect in a way that's meaningful, and to really try to reach that person. And I thought maybe a sense of humor, maybe reaching that inner aspect of the child. So I said to him, so why did you say 6, 7? He said, it's nothing. So I said, well, what does that mean? He said, nothing. He said, the kids just say it. I said, well, why did you say 6, 7, not 9, 3 or 8, 5? He said, it just means nothing. And he was like angry, still wasn't looking at me. So I thought, well, let me look it up. I said, I'm going to check what this is just to engage with him. And when I looked on my phone, there was a huge body of information on 6, 7, surprisingly. So apparently a lot of kids say this. They say it when they're just like passive resistant. They don't want to engage. And the parents are very frustrated, don't know what to do. So I said to him, isn't that amazing? Actually, I see you're completely right. A lot of children use this. And it's just so fascinating. So I said, well, how about we can use that as our language? So if I say 6, 7, maybe I mean, hi, how are you? And if you say 6, 7, maybe you responding to me and you say, I'm fine, thank you for asking. So I said, 6, 7. And then he said, 6, 7 back. And we had a conversation. I said, we've just had a conversation. That's amazing. And he looked at me for the first time, and I saw a light in his eyes. And then he smiled, and honestly, it was like the world opened. There was this beautiful, healthy inner spirit of this child. And I'd reached him. And even if it was just for a moment, it was worth that moment. And I said to him, oh, my word, do you know how gorgeous you are when you smile? I just love meeting you. Now I can see you. Now I see who you are. And it was like a flower opening. So because he was a high-functioning autism, I knew, that he would have difficulty changing tack and going on to another thing. So we really continued with the 6, 7. We spent almost the whole session on 6, 7. So we did a whiteboard, and he drew it and I drew it, and we decorated and we put it sideways and upside down, and we laughed about it. And I said to him, you know how funny this is. Look how weird, and you've done it so amazingly. And yet, no matter how we say 6, 7, even it's always still there, still the same thing. And maybe that's how you and I are. No matter what we do, no matter how we interact, we're still there for each other. And I could see this beautiful, healthy self emerging bit by bit. Every now and then it would close down when he felt vulnerable, and then the barriers would come up. But he really was very engaged and very beautiful to work with, actually. So it was lovely to have that connection. And I thought to myself, even in young people, it was beautiful to see that that inner healthy spirit is right there, and that it needs to be developed, to develop that trust and maybe some healing, where there's a place where the child feels understood, seen, and not judged and blamed. So I then met with the parents and I said to them, explained to them about this beautiful inner healthy spirit of their child. And they both started to cry, actually, because all they were hearing from everybody that came in contact with their son was how bad he was, how naughty, how disconnected, how whatever. So they had lost sight themselves of this beautiful inner self of their child and his sensitivity and his pain. But as we explored these things together, they began to change some of the patterns that had developed. And it really was a positive start. They began to acknowledge him, to compliment him, and work with him rather than at him or against him. So for the moment, he's been attending, he's had about 4 months of sessions, and he comes to each one, and he's very engaged. We've done lots of beautiful, interesting things. I always go where he leads, and there's been a lot of growth. His parents have reported changes. They say he's more compassionate, less reactivity. There are moments of connection and harmony. It'll be a long journey, and I don't suppose he'll ever be completely, healed or what one would wish for, but there's growth, there's change, and there's change within the family unit. And really, my goal is to help the child to acknowledge and begin to love his inner healthy self, to see himself in a new way, and to develop a set of tools to manage who he is and to value himself. And this, for me, is what logotherapy represents. It's healthy, it's helpful, it's growth and change and beautiful things. So I think that was just a very interesting example that I wanted to share with you, just to give you insight into the healthy spirit, which is really at the heart of this work this paper that I've written. So just thinking of the power of logotherapy then with dealing with parents is that logotherapy reaches beyond traditional interventions. It really encourages the defined power of the human spirit to emerge. And I think by embracing that hidden power of our spiritual nature through understanding of all the logotherapy principles and with practical interventions and strategies, then we can really support parents as they parent their children. So I really want to help people to focus attention on looking outwards with a will to love and understand, as well as inwards with kindness and compassion. So that brought me to then the research questions, which I was looking at trying to explore. So the first one is, can we as parents and therapists take the time to really see and appreciate our children for their beautiful and shining inner spirits and appreciate the many gifts and opportunities for growth and healing? So it's a tall order, but it took me a very lot of work and reading to understand how that fits and how it works with children. The second one is, can Viktor Frankl's philosophies on the human spirit enrich and extend traditional views on parenting children? And then, of course, that led to the overarching question, can this exploration into the hidden power of the healthy spirit be used to develop a program for psychologists or mental health professionals to use as a framework when working with parents? So to that end, I developed four themes. I did develop a program. It's made up of 4 components or modules, and it's explored in my writing, but these are the names of the 4. The first session, which is about an hour. It's a PowerPoint presentation, and it covers logotherapy philosophy and how I think it can be an added lens and a new thing that you can put over the traditional work that you're doing, and how it pertains to parenting. Then the second session is the importance of the first session using Franklian principles, because I think that's the hook. And if one doesn't have a successful first session, then you're going to have problems going forward. And so, just as I've explained in my example of that child, that first session, traditionally, he just never went further than that because it just irritated him beyond measure, and he never wanted to carry on. I just want to move this over. And then parenting styles through a logotherapy lens. So we're going to go through those. Oh, my word, let's just see what's happened here. Here we go. Go through those one at a time very quickly, but looking at the first theme. And this one is understanding logotherapy. I just want to get it in my notes. And how it pertains to parenting. So obviously recognizing the spiritual dimension is an extra layer that is really important, and that takes a lot of explaining. And for people who don't know about logotherapy, it's something very important. Avoiding iatrogenic damage, I think that really has been explored. There are many, many points that are involved in this. I think I can just give you a quick, just a case of a child who I've been working with. She's about 9 years old, and she was recently assessed by a psychologist. And the report came back very much medical model, very needed, very important. All of these traditional ways are very important to use as well. But it came back with a lot of focus on an interest in the dysfunction rather than the intact areas of the patient, really giving a lot of negative prognoses and not really explaining what the diagnoses meant to the parents. So this is all the damage that occurs when these things are not done properly. And so the mother said to me, I'm so glad that we've just recently had this conversation with you, because we had a feedback over with her child, because you always manage to highlight the resources and strengths my child has. And I think that's exactly the talking about the beautiful and healthy inner spirit. So we're talking, yes, about the problems, about what's happening, and we need to address those. We're not saying they don't exist, but we're looking at the whole child, and we're really focusing through the healthy inner spirit and saying, we can make this work. There's so many beautiful resources and strengths this child has. Let's use those to move forward. So that's part of this particular module. Obviously engaging with the healthy spirit and looking at that being optimal for a good therapeutic outcome. And that's where I believe healing actually occurs. Of course, the catalyst for change and growth. Frankl was very, he talked a lot about being challenging and not just being in the traditional way. Well, a lot of therapies where I know I've trained myself, where it's Rogerian, which is excellent, wonderful, but you contain the space, you reflect back, you don't necessarily go that extra step that Frankl's talking about, which is challenging the client and really trying to engage with the defiant power of the human spirit, using the building blocks like Socratic dialogue, de-reflection, paradoxical intention. Focusing on meaning and building unique and beautiful moments using the pathways to meaning like creative, experiential, and attitude modulation. Very much what children, the creative is something so wonderful working with children because they're full of their creativity still. So I've got a little girl. I thought I'd tell you very quickly about her names. I won't tell you her name, actually. She's 9 years old. Very, very sweet child. Like a beautiful, perfect little person. And her mum says she is like that to the outside world. She's put on this front because she knows what's expected of her. She's afraid to reveal her real self and her own insecurities and fears. But this has come up now that she's terribly anxious, she's not coping very well, and her mum wanted to know how to help her. Anyway, but I just wanted to give you an example of one of the sessions we had where she loves to design clothes. So I said to her, how about we make a little paper doll and then you can make clothes for your doll? And she said, oh no, she'd love to do that. So she made paper doll, and then we gave this a little persona. So she called her Candy, and actually it was so interesting because this little paper doll was exactly who she was. So she explained this little Candy as being somebody who was perfect on the outside, but very sad inside and often angry, and felt that she didn't measure up and felt she wasn't good enough. So I said to her, how about we design clothing that she can put on when she feels all of these different feelings? So she was very excited. So she made a dress, for an angry dress for when she felt angry, and then a sad dress, and we linked colors. And then we talked about, well, so when Candy wears that dress, how would she feel and how would she express those emotions, and what's an appropriate way of expressing them, and how do we in our lives express our feelings? So although we were talking about Candy, actually it was really about her. And she was, again, we were linked to her connection with her inner spirit, her healthy self, which actually knew what to do and actually knew how to fix things. And so it's been a really wonderful journey with her. But I think in understanding for psychologists or mental health practitioners to know that this is such a useful tool. We can go one step further, we can engage with that healthy spirit, and we can use all of these wonderful interventions that logotherapy gives us to use it, to help us. So again, I think the story of that first boy I told you about with on the autism spectrum is a very good example of the importance of the first session. And it's using all the building blocks to lay the foundation for meaningful encounters. It talks about the uniqueness of the situation as well. We want to seek out relationship. We want to look at the healthy spiritual self. And this creates the safety that parents need to really engage with their children. So we're using all the things that Frankl talks about, logotherapy talks about. We want to challenge the healthy spiritual self and try to show the child that it can be seen, and recognize and acknowledge this, because this is where the real issues reside, and this is where real issues healing occurs. And then the third theme is attachment, focusing on the healthy inner spirit. So I'm sure we all know about the importance of attachment to develop in a healthy way, starting in early childhood. And we also know about secure and insecure patterns that develop and lead to how we respond in our world and relationships in later life. So it's all about connection, relationship, feeling safe and trustful about our world. And importantly, in logotherapy, to extend this to include developing an inner conscience, as described by Frankl, using this as a guide to develop response ability, like responding to using one's own inner compass, valuing this healthy spiritual self and using this wisdom as a guide. And actually, children have this in abundance. And this is all incorporated in this model. So we're looking at meaning in relationships, attachment as the bedrock for healthy development, a pathway to living authentically from the healthy inner core, reaching beyond ourselves, beyond oneself, activating the human spirit, and all of this will lead to secure attachment. So you can see that instead of attachment in the traditional way that we've learned, we are adding these things in through a new lens, which actually really helps in the process of healing. So in our work, we come across many more examples, unfortunately, of insecure attachment or unhealthy attachment rather than secure. So I thought I would give you an example of the power of the defined human spirit as seen in a young child that I worked with, a little girl of 8 who had a brain tumor. She suffered a lot. She had several brain surgeries, each of which caused damage and prevented her from going to school. She had repeated chemo, radiation, painful procedures, disfigurement. She lost her hair, loss of motor control. It made her look and feel very different. And yet, this child's indomitable spiritual essence shone through at all times. She was remarkable. I can't tell you what a brilliantly beautiful experience it was to work with her. She had this amazing inner healthy self that was able to withstand all that she had to deal with. She embraced life. She even responded with a yes when times were hard. During one of our sessions, we talked about another little client of mine who had severe kidney failure and damage. And in spite of all the procedures she had undergone, she remained terrified of needles. So each hospital visit was a real struggle. The child with the brain tumor actually asked if I would video her so that she could tell this other little girl what had helped her and how she managed these terrible moments. And of course, I asked her mum. Her mum said no, with pleasure, of course we could. And then I showed this video to the child with the kidney problems, and it really helped her. And it really embodies for me the ability in a small child even to be able to transcend your own situation and look outwards and do all those things. And then you question, how did she know that? How did she become so wise, so young? And then, of course, you have to know that her mum was the most remarkable person. She's an example of all that is good that we would find in the attachment process. She was a constant source of strength. Her love was always there, and she really always saw the inner beauty of her child, even as the outside began to degrade and fail. There was a mix of protection and yet at the same time encouragement to embrace whatever life had to offer. There was absolute security and love at all times. The family continued to live as normal a life as they could until the death of this little girl at 10 years of age. Her beautiful spirit was really a gift to us and taught us so much. And when I thought about the mom, I thought, she used Socratic dialogue. She helped the family through talking and discussion and questioning to understand the illness and to talk about it and to be open about it. She used paradoxical intention, laughing, making a joke, actually identifying with the problem and everybody pretending to be certain things and laughing at it and trying to really face their deepest fears. She used de-reflection, focused outwardly, asking, what is life expecting of me in this terrible moment, and how am I going to rise to the occasion? And activation of the healthy inner spirit. And she built these shining moments to sustain her after her daughter had passed. So it really is, if we could help parents to form this type of attachment and to build this sort of relationship with their children, I think it bodes well not only for their own relationship, but going forward for the next generation and the next, and so we go. Really healing to be able to develop this. And then the very last part of the 4-part program that I developed is looking at parenting styles through a logotherapy lens and really building conscience in a logotherapy way, responsibility, and working with the spirit. So it looks at the prevailing parenting styles, what they mean, focus obviously looking at authoritarian on the one end of the spectrum, which produces judging and criticism and blaming and quite harsh disciplinarian types of parenting. Right on the other extreme, permissive styles where anything goes, children are allowed to do whatever they wish, parents almost abdicate responsibility. And in the middle, authoritative, which is the prevailing model that we look at to think this is what we'd like parents to use. But then enhancing that with logotherapy philosophy and adding in the idea of what the conscience really means from in a logotherapeutic way, how we're building responsibility and really helping children to develop an inner locus of control. There's mutual respect in this, recognition of one's own healthy spiritual essence, guidance towards being responsible, really a wise use of the conscience. So I did work with, I mean, I've worked with many parents using this type of model, but I remember one mum, she was trained, she was a counselor herself, she had a lot of all the language, she knew exactly what she should be doing, all the good things. And then there's part of this where you can do a little questionnaire to see what type of parenting you predominantly lead from. And she discovered that her parenting was more on the permissive side. And she was horrified. She said her children, by the way, were teenagers and giving her a very hard time. They were unruly, had social problems, didn't know boundaries, were inappropriate in their place in the world, and just disrespectful and rude, and she didn't know how to deal with them. And she said, I've given them everything. I've allowed them to take responsibility. I wanted to make them into independent people. That's why I allowed them to do whatever they wished. And of course, once we understood what that really meant and how important boundaries were and how we had to bring out the best in them and train them to be responsible people within themselves, with their own inner locus of control, she was like, wow, okay, now I see where my work has to go. And so it was really interesting that it was a very big aha moment for her as well. So it's really looking at this positive parenting model and using a lot of practical applications as well, but using the logotherapy lens to help with. So after I'd done all this research and I'd written all this on in my paper, and then Batya said to me, well, no, I think you need to do a pilot study. And I was like, oh, my word, surely not. But anyway, that's what I did next. So I then did a pilot study, managed to get very kindly about 6 mental health professionals, therapists. One was a social worker, counselors, psychologists working in schools, and they were very kind enough to join me. They went through the 4 different components of the program, 1 a week, and the framework was that they did one of each of these themes, and then their task was to answer obviously a questionnaire, and then they were asked to apply an aspect of the program in their own clinical work and report back on this. So my goal was to see, is there any efficacy in this? Is it got merits? And what are the challenges of this? And is it something that would work in practice? So reflections from the pilot study. So obviously there were pages and pages and pages of results that came out of this. So I'm not going to give all of them to you. I just pulled out in categories of some of the important things that people said. The thing that really I loved was that it had been a gift in somebody's working and personal life. And I thought, wow, that's what logotherapy is, such a gift to us. And if we don't know about it, how can we use it? So wonderful that somebody felt it was worthwhile. So in terms of meaning and purpose, somebody said it's been a reminder of the significance of exploring meaning and purpose and moving towards life, not away from it. I loved the meaning-based lens. The 3 paths to meaning prompted reflection on what I value and find meaningful in my own life. And meaning can be attained in even small, ordinary, everyday moments. So that was interesting. Then agency, responsibility, and conscience. Somebody said it's empowering and inspiring to know there's agency and change from a meaning-based perspective. Responsibility is the opportunity for connection, conversation, and growth. So a lot of realizations and understanding of the basic principles. Clients can be accountable and answerable to their own unique conscience. Really a beautiful notion. Focusing on the ought rather than the should aligns with one's inner essence and authenticity. So they really grasp the main points. In the last bits, the human spirit and transcendence, I love the concept of the indomitable human spirit and healthy core. The spiritual dimension allows people to rise above their circumstances. It gives a renewed perspective on the possibility of transcending the self and the realization that every moment has meaning. And then connection and growth is running towards discomfort instead of away from it, provides an opportunity for growth and connection. And the conversation and questions asked really matter. A shift of words can shift perspective. So I think it appears that from the pilot study, even though it was a small sample group, that it is workable, it is meaning-centered, and that the philosophy enriches and extends traditional views of parenting. I found that the reflections really helped show me that the people who participated found value in it and really understood logotherapy from it. So that was very, very heartening. So overall conclusions is that parents and therapists, from looking at the research questions and now going over them again at the end of the paper, that it is possible for parents and therapists to see a child's inner spirit, and that this opens opportunities for real growth and healing. That Viktor Frankl's philosophy of the human spirit does meaningfully enrich and extend traditional views of parenting, and it restores hope and agency. And that the four-theme framework, tested through the pilot study, does offer psychologists and mental health professionals a workable, meaning-centered approach. So I think it did answer some of those questions. So in closing and last words, it really has highlighted the grace and beauty for me of the healthy inner spirit. And I believe that that's where healing can begin. There's something glorious in turning towards it, embracing it, and imbuing it with positive energy and a force for good. And I loved what Lucas had to say. Only with courage can we educate children to courage, including the courage to beat the unavoidable blows of fate. And only with love can we educate to love, including love for life. So as a last slide, I just wanted to say with gratitude to dedicate this paper to my husband and soulmate who passed away in 2022 after a long battle with cancer, and logotherapy and a meaning-centered approach really helped me to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. To my amazing son, who I think embodies the whole spirit of logotherapy and has the most beautiful inner spiritual self, which just shines through. To the children, parents, and families whose storage and courage give this work its meaning, and to the participants of the pilot study for their generosity of time, their honest feedback, and their reflections. They put the work into practice in their work and then gave me back case studies of what they used. So they really went the extra mile, and it was so wonderful to see how they were using what they'd learned. And of course, to Viktor Frankl, whose work on the human spirit continues to offer inspiration and guidance. So thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Carol. Really, really good job. And you've made things so clear for us and fleshed it out. And the illustrations are just beautiful. Because you see how it really works. It gives you that belief again in the spirit of the human, because you see it with your own eyes. So does anybody have any questions?
Not
Yes,
a
yeah.
question. I was
Yeah.
just so inspired. I wish I had you when I was growing up. It would have been wonderful. Thank you so
Hello,
much.
Pam. So
Bye.
nice to see you, and thank you for joining.
Oh, thanks. Sorry I was a bit late. I just couldn't
No
make it in
problem.
time.
Mm.
But oh, it was wonderful. Thank you. Because you don't often see logotherapy in children. And
Mhm.
to
No,
what you're doing is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I would love to have been part of it if I was younger. Having enough struggles at the moment.
Yeah.
But thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you.
And it was very clear your belief in the child. You didn't give up right from the beginning. You just, you know, just say, I know that spirit is in there, and I'm going to find it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And children, you don't have to dig very deep. It
Yeah.
comes flying out so quickly. They are just
Yeah.
the most amazing little creatures. So they're a
Yeah.
pleasure to work with. And
Yeah.
it's so wonderful to be able to use some of this philosophy for them. Yes.
Dr. Matia, you raised your hand.
Good evening, and thank you very much. Thank you, Carol, for a wonderful presentation. I think just a reflection. I never thought about this. The fact that we can apply logotherapy in children. I'm new to the course. I only started last month. Joining the visa. So I have a background I'm a medical doctor. I've worked in a psychiatry unit, and I'm reflecting on how many of our children are exposed to therapy the traditional way,
Mm.
going to psychologists, and how, during our meetings, our focus would be on diagnosis. Would sit there for a whole 5 hours diagnosing a child and looking at the family dynamics. But at the end of the day, we don't see the good in a child. We are wondering what medication we must give them to either make them calm or to make them a bit active. And we just wondering what kind of a family is this? What kind of a mother is this raising this child? So it's all about problems, problems, problems. But I recall all the meetings that I had attended in the 1 year that I was in the psychiatry unit, that there was never a day when we actually said there's actually a good in this child. You know, all we wanted to do was to figure out what diagnosis and then what medication we must give them, and then how to bring the family on board to tell them that they are a dysfunctional family, and how to assist the family to cope with this dysfunctional child. So this was an eye opener. Thank you very much, Carol.
Oh, thank you
Wow.
so much. It's so true. It's that finding of the good inside, because it's so easy to use that medical model, which is really valuable, and it's important that we use all the traditional methods too. But I think there's a whole piece that we're missing in our work. So thank you for that. That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Matthew. It's like all over the world. You see the same thing everywhere you go, and so you're you're telling us from your own experience what happens when you ignore the spiritual dimension, and how important it is to
Mhm.
pay attention to it. It just makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
What about the
And
parents? Do the parents take easily to changes that they have to make?
Well, it's not a case of having to make, it's calling on the parents' inner conscience and own inner healthy spirit too. Because the minute they see that their child has been seen in another way, they're so happy to re-engage with that beautiful child that
Mm-hmm.
they had when the child was a little tiny baby. It was beautiful and wonderful, and then developed all these so-called problems and has become labeled as whatever, and they had forgotten that beautiful essence. So the minute you re-engage with that, the parents are on board very quickly, because they see that when they treat their child with with I don't say love, because of course they love their children no matter what, but with a more compassionate way, and try to really see their child, the rewards they get from the child. Children are so forgiving and so quick to give back with love whatever they are given. So the minute that happens, there's such a change in the relationship that it almost feeds on itself. You don't even have to do that much, or, as a therapist. It's just opening the doors to that connection and that beautiful space.
Wow,
Mm.
that's great. So, how do you think the people in the pilot study are going to take this forward?
So, well, I've got lots of papers here of the work that they're already doing. And so I am in touch with some of them, and they really felt that it has helped them change, and again to move away from that what should I say, medical model of looking at the problem, focusing on the problem, and trying to just put interventions in place, almost like a behavioral plan or, CBT. Not saying that any of those things are not good things, they really are. So one needs to have all of those things in place, and you can use all the traditional methods, which are fabulous. But overarching, if you miss that part of the inner healing spirit, then I think then those things are just interventions. They remain at the physical and psychological level and don't really have that much healing ability, I don't think. They might rectify some of the problems in the short term, but not necessarily inner growth. And so the psychologists or the people on the program really found that there was some value in that, in noticing that and learning more about it, and were interested to apply it. And they found there was quite a change in their practice. So I'm hopeful that they will continue to use it. It's hard to know.
Yeah, I'm sure it will have an effect.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you very much, Batya, for your time, for everybody coming and sharing this time. I really appreciate it. And it's been a wonderful journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. All right, I don't, if no one has anything else to say, like we don't need to continue with the meeting for nothing, but just want to make sure anybody has any last comments or thoughts or questions.
Actually, I think I know it's very inspiring, and I hope this will spread out. But I hope I can explain it good. But it's not only logotherapy, Frankel. Other than that, I think you also, the way you believe in children and the way you reach them, I think it touched me a lot. It is also you.
Thank you.
Especially the little girl with the cancer helped the other girl. It was, the cases are very, not only interesting, very inspiring. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's very powerful. Okay. So I guess that's it. And you were worried you had so much to say. How are you going to fit it in? But I think when you think about the main most important points and the illustrations that will illustrate that, then you really got the essence out of it, and you're able to put it into succinct way.
Thank you, Batya, because it was such a long paper.
Yeah.
And there was so much information. I thought, where does one even start to share it, So I'm glad you certainly guided me in terms of being able to use examples, and I think that's helpful.
Yeah, you learn the best from examples.
Mm.
Okay, so will it be okay with you? We'll put this on the YouTube channel.
Of course, you're
Yeah.
welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And so we'll stop the recording.